Hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Kathy Nicholson. I'm Institute Manager at the Australian Institute for Machine Learning, and I'm here with my colleague today, Jonathon Read, who is an Engineering Manager at the Australian Institute for Machine Learning. If you haven't heard about us, the Australian Institute of Machine Learning is a research-intensive institute based at the University of Adelaide, soon to be Adelaide University. So I'd like to start by doing an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge that I live and work on the lands of the Kaurna people and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, a field that is both new and rapidly evolving. I reflect on the fact that the First Nations people have always been scientists, observing, experimenting and innovating in harmony with country and community. Well, we're only just beginning to understand both the opportunities and the implications of artificial intelligence. What is clear is that it's our humanity, our values, our relationships, and our responsibilities that will shape the future. There's much we can learn from the traditions of deep listening, careful consultation, and respect for all living things that underpin First Nations knowledge systems. So as we move forward, may we be guided by these principles to slow down, to listen deeply, and to ensure progress is grounded in wisdom and care for each other and country. So as I mentioned before, John and I are from the Australian Institute of Machine Learning, based here in Adelaide. It's actually quite an amazing accomplishment to have an institute like the Australian Institute of Machine Learning, or as we call it, AIML, here in South Australia. We're 200 strong researchers and engineers who are pushing the foundations of what's possible in artificial intelligence. And we're training over 90 PhD students who come from all over the world to join us here in Adelaide to learn from the best about what is possible with AI and machine learning. So we do a couple of things. We train talent, we do fundamental research, and we find ways to make that research accessible to the general public to have a true impact. And that brings us to the program we're here to talk about today. Today we're talking about our Industrial AI program, a program that is an investment from the South Australian Government to enable South Australian businesses to be able to access AI capability and to implement that or to adopt that into their businesses. So I'm really delighted that we're here to do that today. Now, before we get started, I'd like to welcome the Assistant Minister for Artificial Intelligence, Michael Brown, who has pre-recorded a welcome for us.
Welcome everyone to this Industrial AI introduction event. Artificial intelligence is no longer a technology of the future. It's the technology of today. And as the Assistant Minister for AI and the Digital Economy, I'm passionate about the opportunities AI brings to our economy, industries and communities. South Australia already leads the nation in AI research and capability. The Australian Institute for Machine Learning is home to deep expertise across many areas of AI. The Mount Elscott Government is proud to support AIML. Our goal is to make AI more accessible to a broader range of businesses, not just those in the tech sector. AI may be considered high-tech, but its benefits aren't limited to high-tech businesses. Every business, no matter the size or sector, can improve operations using AI. From admin and research to manufacturing and sales, AI tools are already making a difference. And as AI becomes more user-friendly and affordable, the barriers to entry are lower than ever before. So far, we've seen local manufacturers, agricultural businesses, the education sector, and even government agencies iron out persistent industry problems thanks to AI. Understanding AI takes effort. I commend those who have taken the initiative, identifying opportunities, gathering data, and investing in tools and training. Today's session will highlight why these steps are essential. They help build sustainable, globally competitive businesses. And with the Industrial AI program at AIML, you don't have to do it alone. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed today's session.
Thank you to the Minister. We're very lucky here in South Australia to have the Assistant Minister for AI. We're the first state who has actually identified someone in the Cabinet to be supporting AI and technology. And it shows how South Australia really is at the forefront of this technology. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Jonathon, who is going to share a presentation that he's prepared to introduce you a little bit to the issues of incorporating AI into your business, and also the program that we're here to talk about.
Thanks, Kathy. And thanks, Michael Brown, for that introduction to this truly exciting topic. So what I would like to talk you through is some practical ways that you and your organisation can start moving along this pathway towards embracing AI and helping your organisation achieve efficiency. So, as Michael said, AI is the technology of today, and not of the future. So let's jump in. So why is AI so important for all businesses, and how can your business benefit? Well, firstly, most of all the businesses that adopt AI and start using it within their processes see an increase in earnings or productivity. In some cases, these increases can be up to 40% in productivity gains. Now, if you consider that in the fact that there's also a very low uptake of AI, only about 35% of Australian businesses are currently using it, there's a huge potential there, both for efficiency and for possible gains in revenue. But before I go too far into that, let's take a moment to think about what AI actually is. So, to put it simply, it's software that mimics human-like decision-making and learning. And the thing you might not realize is that you're already using it today. It's applied in almost all the applications that you have on your smartphone, from things like predicting travel time to when a parcel might arrive, making bookings or schedulings. It's also the personalized content that you see in your Instagram feed. Products like ChatGPT, Copilot, and Shopify are lowering the barriers to the entry for AI for every business in Australia. So what can AI do for your business? The South Australian government is making AI accessible to a broader range of businesses, not just those in the tech sector. And this is an amazing opportunity. So it's possible for small and medium-sized businesses to look at ways that it can automate repetitive tasks, or it can create optimizations in things like inventory ordering, or even give your customers 24/7 service that's tailored to their individual needs. It can also help you engage with your customers in new ways that weren't possible before. So with that in mind, of all these great things that it can do, why aren't more businesses adopting AI? Well, there are some barriers that are holding businesses back, and it's worth understanding these before you move too far into it. In a recent study that was done, some of the aspects were that it can be perceived as possibly having bad outcomes. What if the AI gets it wrong, for example? It can also be seen as being quite complex. And generally, there could be a low understanding within organizations. It's also possible that employees have some trust issues with it, thinking that the AI might take their job. But that's why we're here to help. This is all well understood. So the South Australian government is enabling an opportunity to work with the Australian Institute for Machine Learning to help guide you through this. We're here to help you understand how to implement it and get the best possible outcome from your AI projects. We can guide you along the way, and by working together, we can build a better, more sustainable economy for South Australia. We can be at the forefront of a new era for business, and we can guide you in a number of ways. One of the ways is by providing an AI roadmap. Another way could be actually identifying an opportunity within your business to utilize AI and bring that project to life. So to give you a bit more detail on how to get started with all this, in the event details, there would have been a web page listed that can help you see how to find out more about the program. But essentially, what I would recommend is that you start looking within your business for opportunities where there could be some efficiency that could be gained by automating something, for example. But I do want you to keep in mind that not all problems, can be solved by AI. So it's really understanding these pain points in your business and knowing what they are first before trying to find the solution for them. You should also, in parallel to that, try and grow your understanding of these technologies. So you can start doing that by adopting some of these tools in your personal life to plan a holiday, for example, and then see how that might be applied within your business. You can also look for training that's available to help you get more up to speed in what's possible. So once you've identified some of these things and you've got to the point where you're ready to start moving forward a bit, we'd ask you to get in contact. You can do so by contacting the email address that was listed on the event details, which is industrialai@adelaide.edu.au, and we can help you from there. We can talk to you, help you understand what could be a path you could take. We can help you through the application of the grant and further into the project. So before charging off and doing that though, it's just important to recognize that not everybody sees AI in the same way. So because of that, it's important to discuss the topic openly within your business, and don't forget the human side. You want your employees to understand what you're trying to do and see how that there could be positive aspects for their work. And the reality is AI may change some jobs, they may evolve, but by collaborating with your workers, you'll be able to see how this can be done in the most beneficial and productive way for everybody. And the timing has never been better than now. So why should you act now? Well, first, there's this opportunity where we're here to help. Another aspect is that you can really gain a competitive advantage because there's not a lot of businesses currently doing this. And once you've got that great idea and you're ready to move ahead, there's the technical support when you need it. You can start benefiting from these tools today. So just before I close off, I just wanted to share some of the things that we've noticed through the projects that we've been working with some businesses on already. And it's pretty simple things, but it's just good work mentioning up front. One of those is obviously spend time trying to understand the problems you're trying to solve, but also be sure that you're gathering information about that so that when the time comes, you're fully prepared to explain it with all the supporting information. But lastly, I'd also recommend that you set some pretty realistic expectations. It's like anything in life. When you do something for the first time, quite often it doesn't go quite as smoothly as you would have liked, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it and the better things go. So I'm just going to leave it there for now, but we've got some great things to come. So I'll just swap back over to Kathy now.
Thank you, John. I think one of the things that really drives home, as John was talking about, is when we think about AI, we think about it as business people. It's a change management process. And in change management, number one is about communication and being realistic about what's possible. And I often reflect when I think about the AI projects that I see come past AIML. And at the end of the day, that human element and that ability to ensure that everybody in your team is part of the journey is probably one of the most important parts. But I have got ahead of myself here because I wanted to let you know that we do have some Q&As open. We're taking Q&As and there will be a live Q&A session a little bit later. So please, if you've got some burning questions coming up as you heard John talk and as we progress, please pop them into the chat and we'll get to those at the end. But what we're going to do right now is we're actually going to put on a video that we've prepared for you. And this video will also be available if you watch again later. But the video is really an introduction to some of the clients we've worked with, some South Australian SMEs that we've worked with previously, and a couple of our engineers talking about some of those tips and tricks to make your project really shine and to help you engage well with us and engage in coming up with a great AI solution for your company. So we're going to pop that video on right now. I'll let you know it's about 18 minutes long. So, sit back and enjoy, and then we'll be back again at the end of that to have a bit of a discussion about what we've just seen and also answer some of your questions.
My name's Andrew Hannell. I'm the founder of Digital Constructors. Essentially, I work with technology within construction.
My name's Anna Faulkner. I'm CEO and co-founder of Cropify. Cropify is using machine learning to eliminate subjective grading from the grain and pulse supply chain.
My name is Antonios Perperidis. I'm a senior machine learning engineer at Cropify. My role involves developing machine learning models for grading pulses and grains.
Hi, my name is Deval Shah and I'm working as a senior machine learning engineer at Australian Institute for Machine Learning. And my role specifically caters to helping SMEs and solving problems for industrial partners that are looking to employ machine learning in their workflows.
Hi, I'm Jonathon Read, Engineering Manager here at AIML, and I work with the engineering team to deliver quality outcomes for our customers.
In my experience, simple and real-world projects are the best. I guess where I'm coming from is that there are a lot of misconceptions that any AI has to be some kind of mind-blowing generative AI, but something as simple as counting potholes in a road and recording where they are could save millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. Just to give this some context, construction is a very expensive, very conservative business. I'd really see it as a bit of an unloved child when it comes to government and technology and so forth. It's quite often put in a too hard basket. So during both construction and operational phases, there are many, many inspections that are required. And on many projects, that's done entirely manually, somebody walking around with a clipboard. If that can be automated, it will save a huge amount of time, and furthermore, it adds some other benefits. For example, using computer vision, AI-based computer vision, it's not open to opinion, or it's entirely objective.
I think as a business person, if you don't have a deep understanding of AI and ML, you're not really going to understand if that's going to be the solution to solve your business problem. So I think from the start, it's more look at your pain points in the business, what are you trying to solve, and then try and discover what are the possible solutions for that problem. And if it's not in your scope, you may not understand that AI or ML can solve that. The challenge we were trying to solve was taking the subjectivity out of grain and pulse grading in the global supply chain. We need to try and find a solution, something that could do that. And we spoke to a lot of people, and someone suggested that machine vision has come a long way, and we looked at horticulture and what was being done in horticulture. We then approached the Australian Institute for Machine Learning and had a proof of concept done. And that is basically how our path, our journey started 4 years ago. We're business people. We had a very shallow understanding of machine learning at the time, but now we understand a lot more, and obviously machine learning is the right fit for us.
A well-defined project is a good place to start. A well-defined project with a lot of data that are relevant to the real-world scenario is even better. At Cropify, we've been spending the last 2 years defining such a problem and gathering data and building solutions that are related to the ag-tech applications. Our first products are related with identifying visual defects in grain and pulses and optimizing the grading process.
I believe that most software projects that we can think of that solves a business value can also be applied via AI. Any project that involves pattern recognition or predictive analysis or forecasting patterns in your data can be easily applied via AIML techniques. For example, recently we had a client which came to us asking for a solution to predict fouling in their plants. So they had a lot of data around what happened before the fouling and after the fouling. So those kind of problems are well suited for solving via machine learning techniques. And obviously there are like a lot of other domains where it can empower business workflows, like if you want to identify objects in an image, or if you want to interpret human language. So in those type of scenarios, machine learning can really elevate the understanding of the data, and it can do it at a much higher scale compared to humans.
Generally, it's a project where there's a data-rich environment, so we have a good amount of information that's well laid out and well labelled. Another example of a project would be, for an SME, would be things like, often they're concerned about customer churn or about how to predict changes in sales, for example. And another area could be fraud detection, for example. Businesses generally spend a lot of time and effort getting new customers, and it's a lot easier to sell to an existing customer than to a completely new one. So ideally, businesses want to hold on to those customers and keep them happy for as long as possible, so they keep coming back for more services. It's just a lot more efficient and better business.
For industry to be successful with AI, it is basically not having that preconceived idea. Most people in business have a shallow knowledge of AI. It is more looking at your pain points in the business. What are the challenges you're actually trying to solve, and then finding the best technical solution to solve that issue. If it's AI, fantastic, and it might be machine learning, machine vision, or it might be generative. But it's basically not looking at AI and thinking we want to use it. Is it actually right for the problem we have?
Once again, I think the keys for successful industry engagement are simplicity and real-world applications. There are so many opportunities with AI that it's very overwhelming. I think really distilling it down to key business issues that might cost a lot of money, might take a lot of time, might be very tedious, or might be error-prone. Those are the best opportunities.
There's a few things. The first is understanding the problem, having that domain knowledge and understanding what you want to achieve. The second thing would be to interact early with the engineers, with the machine learning engineers, keep a close collaboration, develop a common knowledge, and work iteratively to redefine that problem based on the new knowledge found from both sides, both from the application side and from the ML side. The third, besides the ML expertise, of course, is large data sets, large storage space, and large compute to be able to develop and deploy the applications.
So successful collaboration between an organisation and engineers in an ML project really does revolve around several things. The first and most important one is communication. So as long as there's good open communication between the engineers, the management team and the customers, everything can work well. As soon as the communications aren't flowing well, there's hold-ups and things don't generally go as well as planned. So the next part of that works in very closely with it is that goals are very important as well. So it's important that before we start off any project, we really understand the goals of what's trying to be achieved so that we can make sure that at every step along the way, we're working towards those goals and what we're building. The last aspect is to do with expectations and making sure that everything we do is well understood, that there's no surprises, and that we're aligning expectations along the way. One of the things a lot of customers might not be aware of is that with machine learning projects, there is an element of exploration and iterative development that we go through. So we need to find things out as we go. So we need to be flexible in our approach, and we'll just try and manage that as best possible by keeping expectations clear of how things are going and being transparent.
I believe for a successful collaboration between engineers and industry partners, a few things need to take place. Setting a bridge between the engineering team and the industry partners is very important, because we need to communicate our engineering solutions to them in a way that is accessible to them. At the same time, they need to communicate their business needs and constraints in a way so that we can implement the solution accordingly. They need to have the data and technical readiness. What I mean by that is, if they are trying to solve any problem with AI, they will most likely need data to train the models or to forecast patterns or predict something out of it. A very simple example can be if you are trying to build a tool that predicts stock prices, right? You need a lot of previous historical data about how the price trends have evolved over time. It's always good to have a technical liaison on their side so that we can communicate the technical difficulties or issues or solutions as we go about the development phase, so that when we actually deliver them, the delivery is fairly smooth and they can take that and deploy in their own systems. We can construct the bridge for them, but they still have to know where they need to build the bridge and what kind of traffic they need to support in order to make the bridge active over a long time.
I think, it is a bit of a specialty area at the moment, AI. So there are misconceptions both on the customer side, but also on, for users of the systems, everybody involved really. So the best way to manage that, I think, is to just be aware that it's not a magic wand, that it's a tool that can help us to accomplish different tasks, but you still have to think about the task that you're trying to accomplish and how things need to change around the tool to make it all work. So it will address one aspect, but there's often several things that need to change to make it all work together. And I think that's something that can be overlooked. It's also, so keeping those kind of reality of how it might not work exactly as you think in mind, but the other side of it is just being aware that there's often an ongoing need for maintenance. So when we train models, we use a set of data, and that over time that data can change. So there is a need to revisit these models and just check that the reality of how things are now is still comparable to when it was first created, and if it's different, what can be done to realign things.
There are quite a few misconceptions that arises whenever we talk about AI in general. Because AI has been so much hyped on a lot of different platforms, people have those notions that it will just work out of the box and it will solve magically all your problems. But that is not the case in most business scenarios, where the context is very unique for each and every industry partner. I can, on the top of my mind, I could think of some common misconceptions like one size fits all kind of scenarios, which is not the case. Generally, AI models are very specific to the business context that you are trying to solve. I think one of the misconceptions that people in industry have with AI is that AI is often objective and unbiased in its responses. And that is not the case, as we are seeing today with like a lot of popular AI tools, ChatGPT, that they seem to be fairly unbiased. But that is not the case because it has been trained heavily on datasets from internet. And the other misconception that I would like to emphasize is underestimating the data requirements. Industry partners think that the quantity itself will suffice, but I believe also the quality of data is very important. How many variations you can capture in those data points is equally important. In general, I would recommend any industry partner who is trying to partner with us or anyone else in AI projects is that assess these misconceptions and try to come up with a pragmatic approach when you consider adopting AI in your workflows.
Common misconceptions are first that AI is a silver bullet that will solve all the problems very easily. The second is the opposite, that it's a kind of worms that we do not want to open by any means and we need to stay away from. The AI just comprises of a set of tools that could be very powerful with some care, a lot of effort and a lot of data. They can provide insights that can optimize processes, products and services that a company wants.
A common industry misconception is that AI is a new technology. It really isn't. It's just that the broader community's knowledge of AI is quite new. It's only become mainstream in the last 2 years. AI is a fantastic application. If you have a real problem and AI happens to be the solution, it can work extremely well for industry.
I'd say that some common misconceptions are that you need highly experienced, highly technical people to run these projects. In my experience, with some effort and some time taken to properly research AI, see where it might be applied to a business, it's really not that complicated. If you want to understand the inner workings and the mathematics and so forth behind AI, that may be a different story, but in actually applying it, it can be very simple. I think the parallel I'd use is that for the driver of an average driver of a car, they don't need to know the inner workings of the engine and the gearbox and that kind of thing. To operate it, they need to know some essential information. How fast are you going? How much fuel do you have? They might need to know a few key maintenance things. What type of oil does it need? What pressure do the tyres have to be? So I'd say to any business looking at AI and where the opportunities are, they should really see themselves as perhaps the driver of the car. They might need to understand some things about how it works, where it can be applied, is the most important requirement for any business.
I think there are a couple of things that I would like industry partners to consider when they are engaging with engineering organizations like us. be very clear with the problem statement that you are trying to solve. There are some problem statements that cannot be addressed by AI, or it can be addressed by very simple algorithms rather than AI. There are certain cases where you need to also evaluate the trade-offs between how much resources you want to invest versus how much you're getting out of the solution at the end. Another recommendation that I have is investing in data preparation. The earlier you do, the better the whole process gets, because data is backbone of any machine learning system. And to improve your models iteratively, you need to improve your data accordingly.
The advice I'd give to industry looking at AI adoption is actually look at what your problem is, and is AI the solution? There are lots of different disciplines within AI, and it's doing your R&D and seeing what discipline really suits and is really going to help you nail finding a solution for the problem your business really has. Don't look at AI for the sake of having AI. It has to be the right fit for your business.
The advice I would give to anybody working on these sort of projects, ML projects with engineers, would be to spend some time really trying to understand the problem that you're trying to solve, so that if you're able to clearly articulate it and you know the benefit that you're going to get from the work that's being done, that'll really help everybody involved. So that engineers will sometimes need clarity on things, and the more you can be well versed in what you're trying to do, that'll really assist with everybody involved. But it also helps when you come to try out the solution that you're given, you can really see if it is actually addressing what you were trying to set out to do or not.
I'd really start at a purely business level, examining your business, saying what costs us the most money, what takes the most time, where are the biggest risks, where are the biggest opportunities, and work backwards from there. And as I explained before, I think the answer or potential answers to those sorts of issues can certainly be found in AI.
The advice will be, again, to try to identify the problem, trying to understand it, and trying to keep open mind on the solution. The technology can provide sometimes a slightly different solution from what is the current standard. So just try to avoid this looking for faster horses, looking for something new.
Wasn't that fantastic? I'd like to congratulate my colleague, Dr. Miguel Balbin, who actually created that video for us, and my big thanks to Anna and Antonios from Cropify, from Andrew from Digital Constructions, and John, our superstar here, and Deval from the Australian Institute for Machine Learning. And I think it was really great to be able to see their insights into this program. So the people we were meeting on this video are people who were involved in what we called AIML 1.0, or the first iteration of this particular program, where we worked with a number of different SMEs over the last 5 years to help them adopt AI. And what we're launching today is, I guess, the new iteration of that, which is a little bit different, but the same type of concepts of what we were hearing today. So having watched the video, as I said before, there is an opportunity to put questions into the Q&A. John and I are going to have a bit of a chat about the video and about his presentation. And then I will look to those Q&As, and I can see at least one's already come through, and we'll try to answer your questions. So John, one of the things I sort of really noticed in that video was how Anna and Andrew both spoke about businesses needing to understand their pain points. What did they mean by this?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something that can be quite easily glossed over. But you know, we're not here to find solutions for technology. We need to think about the problems and just be sure that AI, for example, is the right solution to the problem. And it all starts just understanding the business, looking at areas where there's something that just could be done slightly better or a bit more efficiently. It's causing pain in some way, and just kind of looking at it from different perspectives and considering what can be done to perhaps alleviate some of that pain and create a smoother flowing process. So I guess starting at that point just means that, first of all, you're going to look at ideas and areas that have some sort of value, that there's going to be some sort of impact from the change that's being made. And it should be something that's hopefully that value isn't outweighed by the complexity. So that's probably the next thing to look at is when you've got that problem and you've started to understand it better, is it the sort of right problem for the amount of perceived benefit that you'll get by solving it? So yeah, it just helps you to sort of focus in on what to look at initially.
So what if I'm a small company and I think AI might be able to help me solve something, but I'm not really sure?
Yeah.
Can I still approach you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we would encourage everybody to reach out if they're looking for some sort of guidance. So we can help in several ways. Like obviously there's the ones that the engineers really want to do is get into a really, exciting project to do something really amazing, which we really hope does come through. But it's also helping small and medium-sized businesses adopt AI. That's one of the main things we're here to do. So we can guide you by giving some sort of strategic advice. And sometimes that's just as simple as looking at tools that are available off the shelf, getting an evaluation version, trying it out, and seeing how it goes with your team. Something as simple as that can just get you started.
I loved that you used the example before about using AI to plan your holiday. And it's something I actually did recently where I had a really good conversation with my favourite AI tool, which I won't mention by name. And it really helped me actually identify where to visit. I'm travelling through New Zealand, where to visit, what tourist attractions would be most attractive to my family based on the demographics of who we are and what our interests are. And I planned a lovely 10-day holiday, which took nowhere near as much time as it normally did. So I really mirror what John said about just having a go both in your personal life as well as your professional life, because it's getting comfortable with AI that's going to enable us to do more with it. So you mentioned two different types of programs when you were talking about the Industrial AI program. Can you explain the difference between the two different programs,
Sure.
John?
So the AI roadmap's more geared towards businesses that are new to AI, that haven't really been through a project of that sort of nature before. And it's a way for them to ease into it and start with little to no information to hand and only a rough idea of what they want to do. Whereas the ML Innovate side of the program is geared towards businesses that have already identified an opportunity for AI and they're partway along the path to progressing that project. So by that I mean they've defined what the problem is, they've taken a look to see if there's some suitable data that might be useful in solving that problem, and they're in a really good position to articulate what can be done potentially and what the benefits of that might be. So that puts them in a good place to actually come to us and start a project.
Fantastic. Now, data's been mentioned a few times today. What does lots of data mean?
That's a really great question. Actually, it's almost a bit misleading to say lots of data, because I think what people think of when they hear that is that you kind of throw everything at it. And look, in some ways that can be true, but generally what we mean by lots of data is that it's data that represents the whole situation. So I think it was in the video mentioned by one of the speakers that they're looking for variability in the data. So if we only see a representation of when things are all going perfectly well and in best possible circumstances, what can happen is that the AI can become biased and just assume that's how it always is. So to make a really reliable AI solution, the data can have some variation in it, ideally, so that it knows how to handle every situation that comes along. And a bit more nuance to that, we also need the data to be explained in some way. And so sometimes that involves what we call data labeling, where you'd actually need to go through the data and not necessarily just put it in a folder and give it a name, but potentially go in within the data and highlight something so that when it's being explained to us, we can find that and we know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's really, lots of data means a broad representation of everything possible, but also trying to make sure it's good quality data. So it's the data that relates to the problem at hand.
And does a company need to have this data in order to contact you?
Not necessarily. So it would be great, obviously, if everything's always served to us on a super platter, but that's not the reality of the situation. So we can look at ways to work with sort of most situations, but ideally knowing that there's a good amount of data that's available that you've got access to just means the project's likely to start off quite quickly. Otherwise, we'd look at more of a strategic approach where we could guide you in saying, here's what we could do once you've got that data aspect solved. And that could be going out to the market and seeing, is there somebody in my industry that potentially sells computer imagery of paddocks, for example? That could be something that you need as part of your project. That could be available just to buy. So you don't necessarily have to have all the data. There are ways to acquire it. Data can also be generated. But it's often best to start knowing how you might tackle that area before you get too far along the path.
Absolutely. And I think it's also worth saying here that, we may not be the people who can help you collect that data, but we can actually connect you with some of the other opportunities that are here in Australia of other grants and other opportunities to help you do that. The federal government's funding a program called the AI Adoption Centres, and one of the things that they're doing is actually helping people with some of that data curation and data cleaning up. So there can be ways in which we can connect you in, and then maybe, hopefully, you come back and work with us once that data's been cleaned up. Now, data is obviously something that is very valuable. There's a lot of privacy elements around data. Who owns the IP of the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing that mightn't be well known is that a lot of research projects do have a need for the data to be shared with the researcher so that they can publish a paper, for example. So that applies for much of what goes on at the Australian Institute for Machine Learning. But within the engineering team that is working with this program, we're more focused on trying to deliver these impactful outcomes to businesses. So we actually have no interest in the IP at all. That will stay with the client. What we will do is just facilitate things and provide that, work with them to provide a solution without sacrificing any IP, for example.
And are there any potential pitfalls around that data? For example, in privacy-related issues?
Yeah. It's definitely worth just making sure that whatever data you're intending to use in the project, that you have the rights to both access it and share it. I have heard of situations where data has been obtained, but not in the appropriate manner. And it just means that later on the project might actually be shelved because you don't have that right to use the data. And there's nothing worse than going through all that work to then not be able to see the full benefit of it.
Absolutely. And these are questions John and the team will ask clients as you start coming through this particular granting program, because we want to make sure that if you're providing data to our engineers, they have full access to use it and you have full access to be able to implement whatever product it is we're creating for you. Something that's come up a few times, both in the video and you mentioned it yourself around bias, is data drift and algorithm bias. What do these mean?
Yeah, so starting with data drift, that's a phenomenon where when the machine learning solution is created, it's made based on data that's available at that point in time. So if we look at things like consider really big changes, that data might not actually represent those changes. So one example could be when we shifted to COVID and working from home, that was a big change to certain patterns. So that sort of notion of using the data that you have right now is great, but you do have to be aware that over time, the situation can change and you need to make sure that your AI is reflecting what the current status is of things rather than what it may have been back when the model was trained. So that's the data drift side. On the side of bias, that's more where when you're creating the machine learning solution, you only show it some of the possible variations, not everything that can occur. And I think a really good example of that is just things like a lot of scientific material might be based on male anatomy, for example, rather than female anatomy. And it just means that when we're building these models, it might really represent well for those male aspects, but it might underreport on the other side that it's not as familiar with seeing within the data. So I guess it's being aware of that and just being sure that coming into the project, you can try and identify ways to make sure you're giving the most broad description of everything possible through the data.
Absolutely. And what I find, it's often awareness. As long as you're aware that there may be biases in there, you can help counter them when the human in the loop element comes into your program or project. One of the things Deval spoke about in the video was the trade-off between AI and maybe some simpler solutions. John, what are some of the ongoing maintenance and cost considerations people might need to be mindful of when thinking about implementing AI?
Yeah, it is a good question. So the way I like to think of it is that when you build something, you have almost complete control. You really can say how you want it to work. You're the one putting it together, so you have that extreme level of control. But that also means you have complete responsibility for looking after that. So I think if we think of it in terms of when you buy some software off of an app store or from a shop, there's a supplier supplying you with that software that's looking after it, making it maintained, adding in new features and keeping it running for you. So they're taking on some of that responsibility. But if you're happy with the way that app works, then that's fine. You just work within its parameters and you can get along just fine. But where you're trying to do something that isn't available on the market, where it's something that's quite specific, and it could be the secret sauce of your business, for example, using computer vision to help deliver what you do in a radically efficient new way, it's worth that investment. It's worth making that new approach using this software and these more complex technologies to give you that secret sauce, that thing that's going to make your business different from all the others out there. So yeah, it's a bit more onus of kind of responsibility on the more custom solutions versus the ones you buy off the shelf. In terms of maintenance and the long-term costs, I think the car analogy was perfect, I thought, in the video that we had, where they went through and talked about, you don't have to understand everything about the car. You need to know some things, but not everything. I think that it was a really good analogy because you also need to get that car serviced. It needs ongoing maintenance to make sure that everything's working the way it should. And the same applies for software solutions as well. They do need that maintenance just to check that everything's still working as it should. And much like a car, the more it does, the more high performance it is, the more things can cost. So with AI to generate images and videos and things takes a great amount of processing. So that doesn't come for free. It does have to be paid for in some way to generate that. And that is a cost that needs to be considered before you kind of leap straight into it. But if the benefits are there, if you're getting the efficiencies, then the cost might be negligible compared to what you get.
Absolutely. It's that ongoing maintenance, isn't it? Fantastic. So we're getting a couple of questions come in from the users, from the attendees, and I'll maybe just have a look at a few of those now. So the first question was from Alex regarding eligibility for the grant and what is the definition of a South Australian SME? Did you want to take that one?
Sure. Feel free to jump in though if you wish. So yeah, it's a business that's registered and operating here in South Australia. That's fewer than 200 employees, and I think it was around under 20 million turnover. So we're trying to help the businesses that maybe couldn't really afford to do this on their own normally, but the bigger ones, the kind of multinationals, they're the ones that ideally should just be paying for things themselves a bit because they have that capacity. But this opportunity is there for the smaller size businesses that are located here in South Australia.
Absolutely. And we are looking for businesses that have 50% of your FTE based here in South Australia as well. So it really is about supporting South Australian jobs and growth. So the next one is about whether AIML has a business analyst that can work with businesses to help ID understand pain points. And I'm afraid you're meeting him today. So John is our engineering manager. He works with a team of 10 engineers, machine learning engineers. John usually has the first conversations with our clients, helps understand what's going on, and then he'll, what I like to call, dial an engineer and bring the engineer in to help you identify those pain points as well. And that's really what that first phase of the grant program is. It's our AI Adopt program, which is really about road mapping, helping find those pain points, helping identify the data that you may or may not already have, and providing the opportunities for you to then decide what is the low-hanging fruit, what is the area that you may or may not choose to adopt AI into. There's another question coming in about what is covered by the grant. And really, it's access to John and our engineering team. And maybe John can explain that a little bit better.
Yeah, so rather than it being a cash grant that you might normally see, the way this works is that the engineering time has been prepaid for. So it removes that barrier of having to be too focused and concerned about how to fund the engineering side of things. That we will look at what you're wanting to do and evaluate it based on its merits. And if it's worthy, it'll get engineering time allocated to it. And it's fairly generous. It's quite a reasonable amount of time. So if I put a dollar value on it, it's in the vicinity of $50,000 worth of engineering time.
Yeah, fantastic, which is wonderful. We do have some criteria, though. We need to know that your business has buy-in towards it and your business has a plan of how to use that roadmap or that product down the track. Because the last thing we want to do is invest $50,000 of funding, of engineering time into a product and have somebody shelf it because the CEO doesn't believe in the vision or in the concept. Which is where I was maybe going to talk about a couple of things I've seen in our previous programs, which were less, we saw Anna and Andrew talk about some of the success stories from our previous program before. But some of the other success stories are not the ones that we put on, that we promote in media and create videos on. And there's some interesting ones. You met Antonios in the video there. Antonios was a machine learning engineer who worked at AIML. And he actually was then hired by Cropify. So he came into South Australia to work at AIML, and we see a lot of international talent do that. And then after a couple of years with us, some of them decide that they actually don't really want to do the research anymore. They want to actually find ways to translate and make their research more relevant. And so they often end up morphing into the local ecosystem, working in jobs like Chief Technology Officer for Cropify. So, we are right now in a talent war. There is not enough machine learning engineers and people with this type of skill set here in Australia. The fact that we're able to bring this talent into South Australia and then allow it to infuse into our local ecosystem is something that we're very proud of. We see that training of this generation of AI people is incredibly important. Another lesser known success story is where we actually disprove someone's theory. We had a company come to us. They had a particular device that they were going to put on wind turbines, and those wind turbines were going to be honest, I don't know what they were going to do, but they had some theory about what it was going to do. We did a program with this group, and we actually disproved the hypothesis for them. This saved them a lot of time and money. Ideally, it's not ideal that we disproved what they were trying to do, but isn't it better that you disprove that early, fail fast, rather than continuing on with the process? Another example was a company that's in the gaming industry, and we actually did some prototyping for them around some. This was before ChatGPT. This was before everybody was talking about Gen AI. But basically, you could type in something like a stool or a well or a green fish, and it would create a digital image of that, which they could then use for planning their gaming. Now, what actually happened in this particular program that we designed for them was it became obsolete very quickly because the technology was moving so fast. And so while they never actually used the prototype we created, what that prototype did was it allowed them to show the concept to their salespeople, to their design people, to the non-technical members of their the company. And those people got on board with the concept and then invested in actually having engineers in-house to build those type of prototypes themselves. So again, it's not always the more obvious commercial benefits of selling a product internationally that may be the outcome of these type of projects. It's an SME who has a pain point, who has something they're trying to achieve that we may be able to add value to. So I encourage everyone to keep asking questions in the thing.
Just one thing on that. I think that was a really good point, by the way, from Kathy. But I also think just going through the process of running a project like this within your organisation really builds some more resilience for your organisation. It gets you familiar with doing things that might be slightly out of what you normally do, but it exposes you to that process and you do get learnings from that. So it really helps your business to be ready for when these sort of changes are happening sort of more commonplace in everyday business. Yep.
Fantastic. So there's a query there about sharing the details of the grant. You can find the information on the AIML website, and I'm sure we'll send it out to the participants at the end of this session as well. Peter has a question about the costs or fees for a business to engage with AIML. And I guess it depends whether you meet into the criteria of this grant or not, but there are two different ways you can engage with us. One, you may meet the criteria, you come in through this program, and this is actually at no cost to you. The second option, or if your particular solution is larger than the initial investment of the grant, is that there are consulting style fees to actually work directly with AIML. It could be working with our engineering team to come up with a solution, or it could be actually a problem that requires some deep research. And there are actually ways that you can actually also work with our research community to actually do deeper research. And that is obviously also eligible for the R&D tax credits that the federal government offers as well. But we're happy to talk to you about that, Peter, or anyone else who wants to reach out to us about the various ways you can engage with AIML. So Anonymous has asked, when you refer to data, what kind of business data would I need to have or collate to be involved in the program? We've somewhat covered that, but
yeah, I think just to summarize it, I think it's data that describes the problem you're trying to solve. So if you've got a problem of you finding that you're getting customers, but you're also losing them, they're not coming back and buying from you over and over again. That's what we'd call customer churn. So for something like that, the data we'd be looking for is all the sales data, the information about what you sold to who and for how much, and as much associated information as possible. So what we can try and do is put all that data together to build a story. So we can see, for example, if somebody made a purchase and then they had to contact your team to get some help with it 3 or 4 times, maybe that's an indicator that that's a scenario that's causing them a bit of friction and why they're not coming back. But it really is trying to get the data together that can paint the picture, the whole story of what the situation is that's going on.
And I mentioned before some of those companies that we worked with in the first iteration of this program. Some of them, we ended up working with them on a roadmap. We ended up helping them identify the type of data they needed that they maybe weren't capturing correctly, or perhaps weren't storing correctly, or perhaps didn't actually have the right privacy things in place to be able to utilise that data. From working with us on the roadmap, they were then able to go away and actually start collecting that data in an appropriate manner. And now we're starting to see some of those companies come back and work with us now, or taking other mechanisms to incorporate AI. So, it is worth, even if you're not really sure what your data is and whether it's ready, have a conversation with us. John will help set you straight, and maybe the roadmap is the answer for you to help you actually understand that so that you're ready for the next step in 12 to 24 months from now. Another question, what expected outcomes can companies expect? Is it a developed product, a roadmap, consulting? Yes.
All of the above, I would say. It does involve all those aspects. And I mean, it really depends where you're at with things. And if you're willing to invest, we can take it as far as you'd really like to go. But I guess for most small businesses that are really early on in this journey, the first place will be to get a roadmap that guides you to think about what you can do to start adopting AI and come back to us with a project. It'll give you those steps.
I think if I reflect on the Cropify project, and we met Anna and Antonios in the video earlier, Anna had this concept that she thought computer vision was something that she could use to grade pulses, to understand, lentils and chickpeas and things. She worked with our engineering team, and they created the algorithm that enables that computer vision to sort between the different types of pulses. That was revolutionary. That enabled her to then go out and get investment in this idea and this concept. She was then able to hire Antonios and grow that team, and now they do all this work in-house. But that first algorithm, that concept that enabled them to get the early investment came from them working with us on a grant like this. And we've seen that in several different cases where the ideas there, the concepts there, the innovators have it, but they just need that machine learning expertise to make it real. And that's a really good example of how a couple of really quite innovative South Australian companies got their foot in the door in these type of areas. What else have we got? I encourage everyone to keep the questions going, because when we get out of finished questions, we will finish up the session today. What is the application process if you have a pain point and would like to submit an application?
Yep. So that process would be, if you have a pain point and you've already gone through some investigation on it, so you think you understand it fairly well, that would mean that it's probably more likely to be the ML Innovate that we could start looking at. So I'd encourage you to get in touch with the Australian Institute for Machine Learning to the address that's on the information with the event. I'll give you that email address in a moment. But if you contact that email address, we can set up a meeting and I can talk it through with you, understand what you're trying to do, and help you determine if you've got what's needed to make that successful grant application. And that would be the step after that, is to apply for the grant with a written application. And then we'll meet with you again to talk about any questions we have on that. But all going well, it'll be put forward, and if you're successful, you'll be contacted and we can start a project.
Fantastic. And Jeff asks, how simple can an AI project be? I.e., can it simply be assisting with data entry of times against jobs, analysing costs of jobs against invoices, analysing data entered to ensure it's relevant to the job?
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's changing a lot these days, what can be done with AI because of the generative AI and what language models can do, large language models. So there is a almost never-ending set of use cases for how it can be applied. And I think it's identifying what are the ones that are really kind of painful and going to offer you a really good outcome from, and looking at those first, and obviously picking the ones that are going to be easier than the harder ones. But yeah, look, understanding a set of codes and what should be done in a coding sense or a bookkeeping sense, that is the sort of semantic reasoning that a language model might be able to help with. And that could be something that we could work with you on. Yep.
Mm. Some of the other projects we've been involved in are creating chatbots. So we've actually created chatbots for, was it South Australian Tourism Commission, so that people thinking about coming to South Australia can be directed to the appropriate type of tourist activities. But chatbots can be used in all sorts of different areas. Also, if you go to our website, you'll find a little app that the team developed where you can actually interrogate the guidelines of this particular program by just typing in a few questions into the chat box there. So all sorts of different ways in which the team are able to find AI solutions. Now, I think we're coming to the end of our questions, or are there more that I haven't spotted? Let me just scroll down. I need to scroll down, I'm being told. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay. So Amy says, I didn't realise the opportunity was only for South Australia, but stuck around to listen and be educated. This is thank you, Amy. She says it's amazing in New South Wales for something similar. So Amy, if you want to reach out to us, we can connect you to the AI adoption centres. They're a federally funded group of centres that do some similar stuff, and I'm more than happy to make some connections for you because at the end of the day, we want to see all Australian businesses adopting AI. So thank you, Amy. CK, what type of opportunities are available at AIML to become part of the engineering team? We advertise our positions through the University of Adelaide website. Please keep an eye out. We're not recruiting right now, but depending on the level of new business that comes in the coming months, we may find ourselves recruiting again. And I would say we probably advertise about every 6 months. We see a maybe 3-year attrition with our engineers where they'll spend a bunch of time with us having a fun time. And then someone that we've worked with usually offers them a fantastic job as a chief technology officer, and they duck off to do something different. And again, this is what we see as being part of training the local ecosystem. Anonymous, are the grants available for regional SA businesses? Absolutely. That's the reason that we're doing this online today, is that we really do want regional businesses approaching us. You do not need to meet us in person. If it's necessary for the team to go and visit your site, then we will organise for that, but there's no reason why it can't be done remotely. I don't know if you had anything else to add to that.
No, that's a really good one. I think regional would be amazing. It'd be really good to see that happening. And don't be constrained by thinking you have to be a tech firm or located in Adelaide. It's any small business and it's any problem you want to solve, as long as there's a way to solve it with AI.
Yeah. So some of the businesses we're talking to at the moment are law firms, accounting firms, food and beverage makers, people involved in agriculture, people involved in mining. It is incredibly diverse, the type of companies that could implement AI and help make a part of their business processes. And we often hear people say to us, I'm very small, do I need this? And I mean, my thinking there is yes, you do, because someone bigger than you is probably investing in this. And if you don't invest and incorporate AI, then these people are going to be more efficient than you are. So it really is important that everybody thinks about how they can get in on this AI journey and make it part of business as usual. That was not supposed to be a negative. That was supposed to be a positive. What's something positive we can finish on, John? I think that was all of our questions. Let me just keep scrolling down. Sorry, everyone. Yep, that's all the questions. So, John, do you have anything else you'd like to have people think about as we wind up today?
Yeah, just to not hold back because you think your question might be silly or something like that. I think everyone should just give it a go, get in there and think about it, and that will really help. We'd rather have too many people contacting us than not enough, so don't hold back.
Absolutely. And I also encourage people to have a look at our website. We've been creating more videos that you can have a look at just to see how other people might be using AI. There will be a Q&A on our website following the session, and most of this recording will also be available, so people are welcome to come back and have another look. And really, I do encourage you to reach out to us, ask your questions. We're here to help. And, it is such an opportunity right now with AI, and I'd really love to see more and more South Australian businesses adopt and be part of the AI journey. So I think we might finish off by thanking the Department of State Development for allowing us to run this session in their studio. We've got some wonderful technical staff here helping us, so thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. Now, John mentioned the email address to contact him. It's industrialai@adelaide.edu.au. You can also find information on the AIML website, which is part of the University of Adelaide, under the Industrial AI program tabs. Reach out, ask questions, have conversations amongst yourselves, and let's ensure that South Australia stays at the forefront of the AI revolution. Thank you.
Thanks.